We've all got our own problems, Rebecca. You've always been so independent. You'll figure it out. After 8 years of emptying my savings for my brother's treatments, my family's abandonment felt like a door slamming shut on my fingers, while they walked away with the key. I never meant to become the family ATM, but life has a way of casting roles we never auditioned for. My name is Rebecca Morgan, and for most of my adult life, I've been what financial advisors call the family bank, that one reliable relative everyone turns to when money gets tight. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. It started innocently enough. A loan here, an emergency, bill there. The kind of helping hand that family members extend to one another during rough patches. But when my younger brother Noah was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune condition at 26, those occasional gestures transformed into something far more consuming. "It's just until the insurance approval comes through," Noah had said, his usually vibrant face pale against the hospital pillows, tubes snaking from his arms. 3 months, tops. 3 months turned into 8 years. 8 years of specialized treatments insurance deemed experimental. 8 years of traveling to medical centers across 3 states. 8 years of second jobs, canceled vacations, and a retirement fund that existed only in my imagination. I don't regret a single penny. That's the thing about love. It doesn't keep a balance sheet. Noah is alive today because those treatments worked when nothing else did. And watching him gradually reclaim his life, returning to teaching high school science, coaching junior basketball, eventually meeting Diane and starting a family, made every sacrifice worthwhile. What I didn't realize was how my financial support had slowly reshaped my family's perception of me. "Rebecca's got it covered," became the unspoken assumption whenever money was needed. "She's doing so well with that tech consulting business of hers." My consulting firm was successful. Until it wasn't. That's the reality of entrepreneurship that glossy business magazines don't emphasize enough. Sustainability is never guaranteed. Market shifts happen. Key clients downsize. Economies contract. The first warning signs appeared last spring. 2. Major clients slashed their tech budgets within the same month. Another delayed payment on a completed project, citing cash flow issues. My business partner Mia and I implemented every contingency plan we had, but by summer, we faced an unavoidable truth. Without significant capital injection, Morgan Patel Consulting would collapse within months. I remember the exact moment I decided to approach my family. It was a Sunday afternoon in July, unseasonably cool for Chicago. I sat on my apartment balcony, watching raindrops create ripples in my untouched tea as I reviewed our company financials for the 100th time. The numbers hadn't magically improved since yesterday. My phone lit up with a text from Noah. "Lily took her first steps today. Video incoming." I smiled despite everything, watching my 2-year-old niece wobble determinedly across Noah and Diane's living room. The camera panned to show my parents cheering from the couch, my sister-in-law's parents applauding, and my sister Vanessa taking photos. The whole family gathered to celebrate this milestone. Everyone except me, because I was trying to save the business that had helped save Noah's life. It was then that clarity struck. For years, I'd been the solution to their problems. Maybe now they could be part of the solution to mine. Not a handout, an investment. A short-term loan with proper terms, leveraging the equity in my parents' paid-off home, or tapping into the trust fund my grandparents had established for all of us. I didn't need all the money I'd spent on Noah's treatments, just enough to weather this storm until our new contracts materialized next quarter. Just enough to keep 10 people employed and a decade of work from evaporating. The next weekend, I drove to my parents' suburban home for their anniversary dinner. Everyone would be there, the perfect opportunity for a family discussion. I prepared a professional presentation, clear numbers, conservative projections, multiple repayment options. This wasn't about emotion. It was a sound business proposition with minimal risk. My mother's garden was in full bloom when I arrived, hydrangeas and black-eyed Susans creating bright bursts of color along the stone pathway. The familiar scent of my father's grilled chicken wafted through the air. Childhood memories surfaced with each step, learning to ride bikes in this driveway, homework at the kitchen table, Christmas mornings by the fireplace. This house represented security in my mind, a place where problems were solved together. Voices and laughter spilled from the back patio. I spotted Noah first, looking healthier than he had in years, chasing Lily through the sprinkler. My father stood at the grill, spatula in hand, deep in conversation with Diane's father. My mother and Vanessa arranged platters on the outdoor table while Diane bounced her 6-month-old son Patrick on her hip. It was a postcard of family happiness, a happiness made possible in part by my financial sacrifices. "There she is!" My mother spotted me first, waving enthusiastically. We were about to send a search party. Hugs were exchanged, drinks offered, and compliments on my new haircut received. Everything felt normal, comforting. I almost reconsidered bringing up business troubles on such a happy occasion. But as we settled around the table and my father raised a toast to family being there for one another through thick and thin, I knew this was exactly the right moment. After dinner, as conversation drifted to comfortable lulls, I cleared my throat. "I need to talk to you all about something important," I began, meeting each person's eyes in turn. "It's about my business." I explained the situation as straightforwardly as possible: the market downturn, the temporary cash flow issues, the solid contracts waiting on the other side of this rough patch. I detailed exactly how much capital we needed to bridge the gap and the timeline for repayment. "I've put together some options," I said, pulling out the folder I'd prepared. "My company has never missed a projection in 10 years of business. This isn't a handout, it's an investment opportunity with returns. I wouldn't ask if there were any other viable options." What followed was silence, not the thoughtful kind that precedes careful consideration, but the uncomfortable kind that signals reluctance. My father spoke first, setting down his wine glass with deliberate care. "Rebecca, honey, this isn't a good time. We've just committed to helping Vanessa with her down payment." Vanessa, my younger sister who had spent the past 3 years cycling through career paths, couldn't meet my eyes. "We can revisit this conversation in a few months," my mother added, her smile tight. "Maybe by then things will have turned around on their own." Noah, the brother whose medical bills I'd paid without hesitation, studied his plate. "Beck, you know I'd help if I could, but with the new baby and Diane cutting back her hours." I waited for someone, anyone, to acknowledge the years. I'd supported Noah, to recognize that I had never once hesitated when he needed help, to offer even partial assistance or alternative suggestions. Instead, my father patted my hand and changed the subject to their upcoming cruise. The one they'd booked last month. First-class cabins. It was my mother who delivered the final blow, her voice carrying that particular tone of hers that disguised dismissal as encouragement. "We've all got our own problems, Rebecca. You've always been so independent. You'll figure it out." As family chatter resumed around me, I felt a profound shift in my perception, like a photograph suddenly coming into sharp focus after years of subtle blurring. I wasn't family. I was the family bank. And banks don't get bailouts from their customers. The realization didn't come with anger, not immediately. First came a curious detachment, as though I were observing the scene from outside myself. Then came clarity, about my place in this family dynamic, about the one-directional flow of support I had never questioned, about what I needed to do next. My business partner Mia called as I drove home that night, voice tight with controlled panic. "The Westfield contract just fell through. We need to talk contingencies." Gripping the steering wheel, I made a decision that would change everything. No contingencies, I said with unexpected calm. I have a different plan. Meet me at the office tomorrow at 7. Little did my family know that their rejection would spark the most innovative pivot of my career, and ultimately become the foundation of my greatest success. Sometimes being pushed to the edge doesn't result in a fall. Sometimes it forces you to build wings. The Morgan Patel Consulting Office occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower overlooking the Chicago River. Once a source of pride, the floor-to-ceiling windows now seemed like an extravagance we could no longer justify. I arrived before sunrise the morning after my family's rejection, the sky still inky beyond the glass. The emptiness of the space, designed for 20 employees, now housing just 10, echoed like a warning. Mia arrived minutes after I did, carrying 2 coffees and shadows under her eyes that matched mine. "You look surprisingly calm for someone whose business is circling the drain," she said, sliding a cup toward me. "I had an epiphany last night," I replied, powering up my laptop. "We've been looking at this all wrong." Before I could elaborate, my phone buzzed with a text from Noah. "Hey, about yesterday. I feel terrible. Let me know if you want to talk." I set the phone face down without responding. Mia raised an eyebrow. "Family didn't come through? They didn't even try." My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Noah's daughter took her first steps, Vanessa needs a down payment, and my parents booked a luxury cruise. Apparently, those were the priorities. The same Noah whose medical bills you covered for 8 years? The very same." Mia cursed under her breath. "After everything you did?" "Let's not focus on that right now," I interrupted, though her indignation on my behalf was oddly comforting. "I didn't ask you here to complain about my family. I asked you here because I have a proposal." Over the next 2 hours, we developed a plan that was equal parts desperation and inspiration. We would divest ourselves of the office space, transition to a fully remote model, and focus exclusively on our most profitable service line, financial resilience consulting for healthcare facilities. "It's a risky pivot," Mia acknowledged, "but the healthcare angle makes sense. Your experience with Noah's medical journey gives us credibility no competitor can match." By noon, I'd called a meeting with our remaining team. Standing before them, I felt a strange calm. "The company as we know it can't continue," I began, watching uncertainty ripple across their faces. "But I believe we can build something better from its foundation, something with purpose beyond profit." As I outlined our new direction, I could see skepticism giving way to cautious optimism. By the end of the day, 8 of our 10 employees had committed to the transition. The other 2 accepted generous severance packages funded by the sale of our office furniture. That evening, I returned to my apartment and found 3 missed calls from my mother, 2 from Noah, and a text from Vanessa. "Mom says you seemed upset yesterday. Everything okay?" I put the phone away without responding and spent the night drafting a business plan for what would become Morgan Patel Healthcare Resilience, a consulting firm dedicated to helping patients and providers navigate the financial complexities of chronic illness. The irony wasn't lost on me. My family's rejection had pushed me to transform my professional crisis into an opportunity to help others facing situations like Noah's, but with the financial guidance I'd never received. 2 weeks later, I still hadn't returned my family's calls. The distance felt necessary, protective. I was channeling all my energy into our company's rebirth, working 16-hour days from my apartment-turned-office. The first client for our new venture was a community hospital in Milwaukee facing bankruptcy, the same hospital where Noah had received his initial diagnosis. On a Wednesday evening, as I was reviewing their financial statements, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and delivery services usually left packages in the lobby. Through the peephole, I saw Noah shifting nervously from foot to foot, a paper bag in his hands. My first instinct was not to answer. The hurt was still raw, the betrayal still fresh. But some deeper loyalty, or perhaps mere curiosity, made me unlock the door. "You're not returning calls," he said without preamble. "Mom's worried sick." "I've been busy saving my company without family support," I replied, not inviting him in. "It's quite time-consuming." He winced. "I brought dinner from Giordano's." He held up the bag. "Your favorite deep dish." The familiar aroma of cheese and tomato sauce triggered an unwelcome pang of nostalgia. How many times had we shared that pizza during his hospital stays? How many meals had I brought him when he was too weak to stand? "I'm not hungry." "Beck, please." His voice cracked slightly. "Just 10 minutes. I need to explain." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. Noah surveyed my apartment with obvious concern. My dining table had disappeared beneath stacks of files and 2 extra monitors. Unwashed coffee cups clustered near my keyboard. A blanket and pillow on the couch suggested I'd been sleeping there rather than making it to the bedroom. "You're living like this is a bunker," he observed, clearing space on the coffee table for the pizza box. "I'm fighting for survival. That tends to require focus." He sat heavily on the couch. "That's what I wanted to talk about, the business loan you asked for." "Investment opportunity," I corrected, "and we're beyond that now." "I know, that's why I brought this." He removed an envelope from his jacket and placed it beside the pizza. "It's not much. 30,000. Diane and I took out a home equity line. We can get more if you need it." The gesture, weeks too late and far below what I'd initially needed, ignited something dangerous inside me. "Keep your money, Noah." My voice emerged cold, unfamiliar even to myself. The time for that was 3 weeks ago, when it could have saved jobs and contracts. "We didn't understand how serious." "No, you understood perfectly. You just didn't care enough to inconvenience yourselves." The words poured out, unstoppable now. "For 8 years, 8 years, Noah. I paid your medical bills without question. I depleted my savings, worked nights and weekends, postponed my own life. Not once did I hesitate when you needed me." "I know that," he whispered. "I've never forgotten." "But you did forget. You all forgot the moment I needed help. Do you know what Mom said to me? We've all got our own problems. As if my problems have ever mattered to this family." Noah's face crumpled. "It wasn't like that. We didn't think—" "That's exactly right. You didn't think. About me, about reciprocity, about basic fairness. I was good enough to be the family safety net, but not important enough to catch when I was falling." He looked down at his hands. "We messed up. Badly. But we're trying to make it right." "With $30,000 and a pizza?" I laughed, without humor. "Do you know what this experience has cost me? Not just financially, but in my understanding of where I stand with my own family?" "Tell me how to fix this," he pleaded. I studied my brother, the brother whose life I'd helped save, whose recovery I'd celebrated, whose children I adored despite only seeing them in video clips these days. The anger remained, but beneath it lay something more complicated. The realization that our relationship had always been fundamentally unbalanced in ways neither of us had fully acknowledged. "I don't think you can fix this, Noah," I said finally. "But I'm fixing my company without your help. We're pivoting to healthcare financial consulting, helping patients navigate the system that nearly bankrupted you, and actually did bankrupt me." His head snapped up. "You're bankrupt?" "Financially. Not quite. But I lost something when all of you turned your backs on me. Something I'm not sure I can recover." Noah stayed for another hour. We ate the pizza in stilted conversation, carefully, avoiding landmines of emotion. He told me about Lily's new words, about Patrick's first teeth. I shared sanitized updates about my business transformation. When he left, the envelope remained on my coffee table, untouched. That night, I couldn't sleep. The confrontation had dislodged something inside me, Not healing exactly, but a shifting of jagged pieces into a configuration that hurt differently, perhaps more productively. I found myself opening my laptop at 3 a.m., creating a new document. At the top, I typed, Financial Survival Guide for Family Caregivers. What I wish I'd known before saving my brother's life. By dawn, I had outlined a book that would become not just my personal catharsis, but the cornerstone of a movement I couldn't yet envision, and the unexpected catalyst for the most painful family gathering of my life. 6 months passed in a blur of reinvention. The document I'd started the night of Noah's visit evolved from outline to manuscript to published book in what my editor called record time. I'd written with a furious clarity, pouring years of unacknowledged resentment and hard-earned wisdom onto the page. Financial Survival Guide for Family Caregivers wasn't just a cathartic exercise, it filled a gaping void in the marketplace. While there were countless resources for medical caregiving, few addressed the financial hemorrhage that accompanied long-term illness in America's broken healthcare system. The morning my first box of author copies arrived, Mia appeared at my door with champagne. "I know it's barely 9 a.m., she said, but some milestones demand impropriety. We sat on my balcony, watching autumn leaves skitter across the Chicago Riverwalk 15 stories below. The apartment was minimalist now. I'd sold most of my furniture to fund payroll during our transition, but the view remained spectacular. Page 6 mention in the Wall Street Journal featured interview on NPR and advance orders topping 50,000, Mia said, raising her glass. Not bad for a first-time author who also rebuilt a consulting firm from ashes. I clinked my glass against hers, feeling something I hadn't experienced in months. Pride untainted by bitterness. The book was never the goal, I reminded her. It's just the vehicle. And it was. While my name appeared on the cover, the book's profits funneled directly into the Morgan Foundation, a nonprofit we'd established to provide financial navigation services to families facing catastrophic illness. The concept was simple but revolutionary. Deploy financial advisors alongside social workers in major hospitals, offering guidance before families made devastating monetary decisions out of desperation or ignorance. The pilot program at Chicago Memorial, where Noah had received much of his treatment, had already assisted over 100 families in 4 months. Each consultation represented a potential lifeline I'd never had. My phone buzzed with my publicist's name on the screen. I ignored it. Harper could wait. This rare moment of celebration with Mia felt sacred, untouchable. "Your family call about the NPR interview?" Mia asked, ever direct. My mother left a voicemail. I haven't listened to it yet. After that night with Noah, I'd maintained minimal contact with my family. Holiday text messages, occasional brief calls, but nothing substantial. The distance had hardened from temporary boundary to permanent removal, like a renovation that knocks down a wall rather than simply painting it a different color. They knew about the book, of course. I'd sent each of them a signed copy with no note enclosed. What could I possibly write that wouldn't sound like either accusation or plea? Noah had called immediately upon receiving his. I'd let it go to voicemail, just as I had every call since. "You'll have to face them eventually," Mia observed, refilling our glasses. "Especially now." Now? She slid her phone across the table, showing me an email from a familiar name, Caroline West, producer of Impact Tomorrow, the highest-rated morning show in the country. "They want you for a full segment next Thursday. Live interview about the book and foundation." Mia hesitated. "They also want a human interest angle. Family photographs, personal story components, the whole heartstring symphony." I stared at the Chicago skyline, processing this development. National television exposure would catapult the foundation's visibility, potentially attracting donors and hospital partners across the country. But the personal cost. "They specifically mentioned including your brother's story," Mia added quietly. "They've already found photos of..." Him from news coverage about the experimental treatment's success. Of course they had. Noah's recovery had generated modest media attention 5 years ago, local human interest pieces about medical innovation. I'd stood beside him at press conferences, both of us smiling for cameras, his arm around my shoulders while reporters asked about his illness, but never about its financial impact on his sister. "I can't use Noah's story without his permission," I said finally. "So ask him," Mia replied, making it sound simple. That evening, after Mia left and the champagne buzz faded, I found myself staring at my phone. 3 missed calls from Harper, 2 from the Impact Tomorrow producer who'd somehow obtained my personal number, and 1 from my mother, her weekly attempt at connection. With reluctance bordering on physical pain, I pressed play on her voicemail. "Rebecca, honey, it's Mom." Her voice sounded older somehow, though it had only been 6 months. "I heard your interview on National Public Radio this morning. You spoke so beautifully about helping families navigate medical costs. Your father and I are just so proud isn't a big enough word. Please call when you can. We miss you terribly." I deleted the message and opened my email, responding to Caroline West with a tentative yes, while stipulating that I would need to secure family permissions before discussing specific cases. Then, with a sense of inevitable confrontation, I texted Noah. "Need to speak with you about a media opportunity involving your medical story. Professional matter. Can you talk tomorrow?" His response came within seconds. "Name the time and place. I'll be there." We met at a coffee shop equidistant from our respective offices. Neutral territory. I arrived early, claiming a corner table with good privacy and poor acoustics. Businesslike. Impersonal. Exactly what I needed. Noah appeared precisely on time, looking simultaneously familiar and foreign. His face had filled out since I'd last seen him, the gauntness of illness now just a memory preserved in photographs and my nightmares. He wore a charcoal suit that suggested faculty meetings, a life continuing without my involvement. "You look good," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "The book is incredible, Beck. I've read it twice." I nodded acknowledgement, but moved directly to purpose. "A national morning show wants to feature the foundation. They've found your medical story independently and want to include it as part of my segment." "Of course they can use it," he replied without hesitation. "Whatever helps the foundation. They'll want photographs, possibly an appearance." "Whatever you need," he repeated. "Diane and I have already donated to the foundation, you know. Monthly contribution." I hadn't known. I'd deliberately removed myself from donor acknowledgments, leaving those tasks to our development director. "That's generous," I said stiffly. "But this is different. This would make your illness part of my public narrative." Noah studied me, seeming to choose his words carefully. "It always has been part of your narrative, Beck. The difference is now you're controlling how that story gets told." Something about his insight, unexpected and uncomfortably accurate, cracked my professional veneer. "And what if I tell it honestly? What if I explain how I financially supported you for 8 years, then got abandoned by my entire family when I needed help? Is that a story you want shared on national television?" Noah didn't flinch. "If that's the story that needs telling, then tell it. We earned whatever comes from that truth." His calm acceptance deflated my defensive anger. I'd expected resistance, not surrender. "The foundation is doing remarkable work," he continued. "Families are getting guidance we never had. That's what matters most." "We had guidance," I corrected. "I provided it, along with money, time, and personal sacrifice." "I know." He met my gaze directly. "Not a day passes that I don't think about what you did for me and what we failed to do for you." The book made that even clearer, how completely we misunderstood your situation. I sipped my coffee, using the moment to regain composure. This wasn't proceeding according to my expectations. Noah's contrition offered no satisfying target for my lingering resentment. "The segment airs next Thursday," I said finally. "They'll need photographs by Monday." "I'll send everything they need." He hesitated. "Rebecca, would you consider coming to dinner Sunday? Everyone misses you," Lily asks about her Auntie Beck constantly. The invitation landed like a weight. 6 months of distance had provided protection, clarity, purpose. Re-engaging meant vulnerability, the possibility of fresh hurt. "I don't think that's a good idea. Just dinner, no pressure, no expectations." He pulled an envelope from his jacket, eerily reminiscent of that night 6 months ago. "And this. From all of us." Unlike last time, I accepted the envelope, opening it at the table. Inside was a check for $250,000 made out to the Morgan Foundation. "What is this?" My voice emerged hoarse, unfamiliar. Mom and Dad sold their vacation property in Michigan. Vanessa contributed her entire trust fund portion. I took out another equity line. Noah's eyes held mine. "It doesn't undo what happened, but it's acknowledgement, recognition." I stared at the check, emotions churning too turbulently to name. The amount was substantial, enough to expand the foundation's services to 3 additional hospitals. But the symbolism behind it felt weightier still. "I can't." "You can," he interrupted gently. "Not for me, not for the family, but for the hundreds of people who will benefit. Think of it as karmic rebalancing, if that helps." As I left the coffee shop, check secured in my bag and Noah's dinner invitation uncommitted in my mind, an unexpected email arrived from Caroline West. Segment expanded to 15 minutes. Would like to discuss Foundation's future ambitions. Any interest in announcing a major expansion initiative on air? The synchronicity was too perfect to ignore. With this family contribution, we could announce a 5-hospital expansion, complete with staffing commitments and implementation timelines. The foundation, my response to abandonment, could grow beyond anything I'd initially imagined. That evening, as I prepared materials for the producer, my finger hovered over Noah's last text. "Sunday dinner, 5 p.m. No pressure. Doors always open." Against my own protective instincts, I typed, "I'll bring dessert." His response came with unsettling immediacy. "Mom's making your favorite pot roast. Everyone will be here. Everyone." The thought sent adrenaline coursing through my system. Fight or flight activated by the prospect of family dinner. But beneath the anxiety lay something else. The unmistakable recognition that my greatest professional achievement would be hollow if not shared with the very people who had inadvertently made it possible. Sometimes our most meaningful success emerges not despite betrayal, but because of it. My foundation existed because my family had failed me when I needed them most, a bitter seed that had somehow produced vital fruit. As I confirmed final details for the television appearance that would transform the foundation from local initiative to national movement, I understood with sudden clarity. I was about to complete a journey from victim to victor. The only question remaining was whether reconciliation would be part of that victory. Sunday arrived with unseasonable warmth for October in Chicago. I stood outside Noah and Diane's suburban home, a bakery box balanced in one hand, the other poised to knock, but somehow unable to complete the motion. Through the window, I could see family movement, my mother arranging something on the dining table, my father gesturing animatedly while holding Patrick on his hip. Vanessa's distinctive laugh carried faintly through the glass. For a moment, I considered retreating to my car, texting some convenient emergency. The foundation needed me. Manuscript edits awaited. Pre-interview preparations remained unfinished. Before I could act on this impulse, the door swung open. Lily stood there, in a purple princess dress, eyes widening in recognition. "Auntie Beck!" she squealed, launching herself at my legs. "You came back!" The simple joy of her greeting dismantled my defenses. I crouched down, awkwardly balancing the dessert box while accepting her enthusiastic hug. "I missed you big," she declared, her small hands patting my cheeks with solemn importance. "I missed you too, big girl," I replied, surprised by the truth in those words. Diane appeared behind her daughter, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "We were taking bets on how long you'd stand out there," she said with a gentle smile. "Noah?" "Had 5 minutes." I said 10. "How long was it actually?" "Almost 7. Noah wins on a technicality." Stepping over the threshold felt like crossing an invisible boundary between my carefully constructed new life and the messy entanglement of family. The familiar sense of my mother's cooking, rosemary, garlic, the distinctive aroma of her pot roast, triggered an unwelcome wave of nostalgia. The initial greetings were a blur of cautious hugs and careful pleasantries. My mother's eyes shone with unshed tears. My father squeezed my shoulder a beat too long. Vanessa studied me with uncharacteristic thoughtfulness. "You look different," she observed during a brief moment alone in the kitchen. "More. I don't know, solid somehow." I nodded, understanding what she meant. The past 6 months had stripped away non-essentials, leaving behind something more defined, more intentional. Building something that matters changes you. "The foundation's amazing, Rebecca. I've been following everything, the website updates, the family testimonials. You've created something revolutionary." Her sincerity surprised me. Vanessa and I had always maintained a complicated relationship, competitive in our youth, distant in adulthood. Her apparent admiration felt foreign, almost suspicious. "It's still growing," I said. "The television segment this week could change everything." Noah mentioned that. She hesitated. "He also told us about the check. I haven't deposited it yet." "But you will." It wasn't a question. Before I could respond, Noah called, "Everyone to the dining room." The meal proceeded with strained normalcy. Compliments on the food, updates on Lily's preschool adventures, discussion of Patrick's developing personality. My father asked polite questions about the foundation. My mother refilled wine glasses with nervous frequency. The careful dance of family reconciliation continued until dessert, when Noah gently clinked his glass for attention. "I'd like to propose something," he began, glancing at me. "Rebecca's appearance on Impact tomorrow is huge. National exposure for the foundation, potential donors across the country, new hospital partnerships." Everyone nodded. This wasn't news. "But I think we can do more than just donate money." He took a breath. "I've been developing an idea, a technological solution that could amplify the foundation's work exponentially." This was unexpected. Noah taught high school science. Technology wasn't his expertise. One of the biggest challenges for families facing medical crises is information management, he continued. Medical records, insurance documents, treatment options, payment plans, assistance programs. It's overwhelming, especially when you're already dealing with the emotional impact of illness. I found myself leaning forward despite my resistance. He was articulating a problem I encountered daily through the foundation's work. "I've been consulting with some former students who work in app development," Noah said. "We've created a prototype for what we're calling MedLife Navigator, a secure platform that integrates medical and financial information management for patients with complex conditions." He slid a tablet across the table. On the screen was a sleek interface showing various modules: document repository, treatment timeline, financial dashboard, insurance tracker, assistance programs, caregiver resources. "The foundation already provides human advisors," he explained. "This would be the digital component, available 24/7, accessible from any device, constantly updated with new resources and regulations." I studied the prototype, professional, interest temporarily overriding personal tension. The concept was sound, addressing a critical need we'd identified in our work. "This is impressive," I admitted. But development costs for something this comprehensive would be substantial. That's the thing, my father interjected, surprising me. We want to fund it, completely. I looked up, scanning their faces. What do you mean? I've liquidated my retirement portfolio, he said simply. Your mother and I have discussed it extensively. We want to finance the entire development phase, programming, testing, regulatory compliance, everything. Dad, that's the right thing to do, he finished firmly. For years, we watched you support Noah without fully understanding the sacrifice involved. Your book opened our eyes. This is our contribution to making amends, to ensuring other families have resources we never considered when Noah was ill. The room fell silent. I stared at the prototype on the tablet, mind racing, with implications. The app wouldn't just complement the Foundation's work, it could transform our entire approach, potentially helping thousands more families than we could reach through in-person advisors alone. This isn't a replacement for what you've built, Noah added softly. It's an enhancement. The Foundation's expertise would guide every aspect of development. Why? The question escaped before I could contain it. Why go to this much trouble? My mother reached across the table, tentatively covering my hand with hers. Because we failed you, Rebecca. Not just with the loan, though that was inexcusable, but for years before that. We accepted your support of Noah as something expected, rather than the extraordinary gift it was. We can't undo that mistake, my father continued, but we can honor your sacrifice by extending its impact. This app could reach families who might never access the Foundation's in-person services. I withdrew my hand, needing physical distance, to process the emotional complexity of their offer. The app represented exactly what the Foundation needed for expansion. Its development would require not just funding, but expertise, time, commitment, all things my family was suddenly offering, in abundance. The television segment? I said slowly. It's Thursday. Noah nodded. 3 days away. If I were to announce this digital initiative alongside our hospital expansion, I paused, calculating rapidly. The combined impact would be substantial, transformative, potentially. That's what we're hoping, Vanessa said. And it's not just money. I've lined up 3 corporate partners interested in sponsoring ongoing maintenance costs. She shrugged at my surprised expression. Marketing is what I do, remember? Might as well use those connections for something that matters. The irony wasn't lost on me. For months, I'd channeled my hurt into building something meaningful, a resource born from abandonment. Now my family was offering to amplify that work through their own efforts, their own sacrifices. I would need complete creative control, I said, testing boundaries. The Foundation's philosophy would have to guide every aspect of development. Absolutely, Noah agreed immediately. You're the expert. We're just providing tools and funding. And I would need commitments in writing, formal agreements, not family promises. My father nodded. We'll have everything drafted by your attorney tomorrow. I studied each of them in turn. These people whose rejection had sparked my greatest professional innovation, now offering resources to expand that vision beyond anything I could accomplish alone. Development would take months, I said, thinking aloud. Beta testing, user feedback, refinement. We've thought about that, Noah replied. The announcement would be phase 1, proof of concept, investor interest, Foundation partnership. Actual development would follow a careful timeline, with regular Foundation oversight. The precision of their planning suggested this wasn't a spontaneous Sunday dinner proposal, but something they'd been developing for weeks, perhaps months. You've been working on this since the book came out, I realized aloud. Diane spoke for the first time. Since before that, actually. Noah started sketching concepts while you were still writing. We just needed time to develop something substantive, enough to present. I rose from the table, needing physical movement to process this development. Through the dining room window, I could see Lily and Patrick playing in the backyard under Vanessa's watchful eye, family continuing its rhythms, while momentous conversations unfolded indoors. The app prototype remained on the table, a digital bridge between my professional achievement and my family's attempt at redemption. It represented exactly what the foundation needed, but came from the very people whose actions had necessitated its creation. "I need to think," I said finally. "Of course," my mother replied too quickly. "Take whatever time." "Not days," I clarified. "Hours. The producer needs to know by morning if we're announcing any additional initiatives during the segment." Noah looked hopeful. "So you're considering it?" I picked up the tablet, tucking it into my bag. "I'm evaluating a potential partnership opportunity with appropriate professional diligence." My father almost smiled. "That sounds like a yes with paperwork." As I left their home that evening, the family check still undeposited but the app prototype securely in my possession, I recognized the elegant symmetry of the situation. My greatest wound had produced my greatest work. Now that work might be amplified by the very people who had inflicted the wound. What I hadn't anticipated was how this technological solution would soon become the catalyst for a far more personal reconciliation. One that would require me to confront not just my family's failing, but my own unacknowledged vulnerability. The Impact Tomorrow studio resembled an elegant living room. If living rooms came with 7 cameras, blinding lights, and a floor manager counting down with urgent hand gestures. I sat perched on the edge of a cream-colored sofa, attempting to project calm authority while my heart hammered against my ribs. 90 seconds to air, the producer announced, darting forward to adjust my microphone one final time. Remember, Caroline will start with the book, transition to your personal experience with your brother, then move to the foundation's work. The announcement comes in the final segment. I nodded, too focused on controlling my breathing to form words. In the green room, Mia gave me an enthusiastic thumbs up through the glass. Beside her stood Noah, invited at the last minute when I'd decided to include the app announcement. My brother looked as nervous as I felt, tugging at his collar while reviewing note cards that probably contained talking points he'd memorized days ago. The decision to announce the MedLife Navigator had come at 3 a.m. the morning after the family dinner. I'd spent hours examining the prototype, consulting with our technical advisors, and weighing the personal complications against the professional opportunity. The app wasn't just good, it was revolutionary, addressing coordination gaps that plagued families navigating complex medical journeys. My lawyer had worked through the night drafting partnership agreements. By dawn, I'd emailed the producer with our expanded announcement plans. By noon, legal documents were signed. By evening, we'd created presentation graphics for the segment. Everything had moved with dizzying speed, professional momentum temporarily overshadowing personal reservations. 30 seconds, the producer called, stepping back as Caroline West settled into the chair opposite mine. The host smiled warmly. "Ready to change some lives today, Rebecca?" Before I could answer, the countdown began. Caroline transformed before my eyes, posture straightening, expression brightening, voice shifting to the perfect pitch of engaged enthusiasm. "Good morning, America." Today we're joined by Rebecca Morgan, whose groundbreaking work is transforming how families navigate the financial devastation of serious illness. The interview proceeded with practiced precision. Caroline guided me through discussion of the book, pausing for the emotional moments, pressing for concrete examples. When Noah's photograph appeared on the screen behind us, she shifted tone. "Your brother's 8-year battle with a rare autoimmune condition prompted your current work. Tell us about that experience." I'd rehearsed this part extensively, crafting a narrative that honored truth while avoiding family embarrassment. Noah's illness taught me that our healthcare system creates 2 simultaneous crises, medical and financial. Most families are prepared for neither. And you personally covered much of your brother's medical expenses? I did what many Americans do every day, prioritized a loved one's health over financial security. I maintained eye contact with the camera, knowing my family was watching from various locations. What makes our story unusual isn't the sacrifice but the opportunity that emerged from it. Noah's segment came next. He joined us on set, articulating his experience with composed vulnerability. The producer had prepped him well. He emphasized the human impact of illness without dwelling on specifics that might distract from the Foundation's mission. Rebecca's support wasn't just financial, he explained. She created systems for tracking treatments, insurance appeals, medication costs, practical tools that preserved my dignity during a time when I felt anything but dignified. Caroline nodded sympathetically. And you've written in support materials that your family didn't fully understand the extent of her sacrifice until recently? A dangerous moment, territory we'd agreed to approach carefully. Noah met it with unexpected grace. There's a particular blindness that happens when you're seriously ill. You're focused on survival, not the sacrifices others are making to ensure that survival. By the time I was well enough to fully comprehend what Rebecca had done, patterns of imbalance were firmly established. Patterns that came to a breaking point when Rebecca's business faced challenges, Caroline prompted. I tensed, waiting for Noah's response. This segment hadn't been scripted, too personal, too raw for rehearsed answers. My sister faced her financial crisis alone because we failed to recognize her vulnerability, Noah said simply. She had always been the family's rock. We couldn't imagine her needing support as desperately as she'd once provided it. Caroline turned to me. That must have been incredibly painful. I felt sweat gathering at my hairline, the studio lights suddenly too warm. Pain can be productive if properly channeled. My experience, both supporting Noah and then facing my own crisis without family support, highlighted gaps in our systems that the Morgan Foundation now addresses. The host nodded, recognizing my pivot away from family drama toward professional mission. Which brings us to today's announcement. You're not just expanding the Foundation's hospital presence. This was it, the strategic moment we'd carefully constructed. I leaned forward slightly, projecting confident vision. Today marks a transformation in how we support families facing medical crises. While the Morgan Foundation will continue expanding our in-person services to 5 additional hospitals nationwide, we're also launching development of MedLife Navigator, a comprehensive digital platform that integrates medical and financial management for patients with complex conditions. The monitor behind us displayed the app's interface as I explained key features. Noah interjected occasionally, highlighting technical elements and implementation timelines. Caroline asked appropriately impressed questions about accessibility, security, and scalability. This ambitious project represents a $3 million investment, Caroline noted. How is the Foundation funding such extensive development? The question hung in the air for a beat longer than comfortable. Noah and I exchanged glances. This particular detail had been debated extensively in preparation sessions. The initial development phase is being fully funded by my family, I said finally. They've committed personal resources to ensure this. Tool reaches families who desperately need coordination support. Caroline's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. She recognized the narrative's significance. The same family who wasn't able to support your business when you needed help? The directness of her question startled me. We hadn't prepared for such explicit linking of past wounds to present collaboration. Noah intervened before I could respond. The same family who learned a difficult lesson about reciprocity and is committed to honoring my sister's vision. Our support of the app isn't about personal redemption. It's about extending the impact of Rebecca's work to help thousands of families avoid the mistakes we made. The producer made a subtle gesture indicating our segment was running long. Caroline nodded acknowledgement, and transitioned to closing questions about how viewers could support the Foundation's work. As the camera lights dimmed and microphones were detached, Caroline leaned forward. That was powerfully authentic. The family reconciliation angle will generate significant coverage. That wasn't our intent, I said quickly. She smiled with media-savvy understanding. The best stories never are. In the green room afterward, Mia embraced me. You were brilliant, poised, authoritative, compelling. The Foundation's website is already seeing unprecedented traffic. Noah stood slightly apart, watching our celebration with an expression I couldn't quite interpret. When our eyes met, he offered a tentative smile. Thank you for including me. The app was your idea, I acknowledged. It made sense for you to present it. Not just that. He gestured vaguely at the studio beyond. For allowing me to acknowledge our failure publicly, to take responsibility. Before I could respond, my phone rang, the Foundation's development director. Rebecca, the response is overwhelming. We've received over $500,000 in donations in the past 30 minutes, and 3 hospital systems have reached out about potential partnerships. The strategic opportunity we'd constructed, combining the Foundation expansion with the app announcement, was yielding results beyond our projections. By the time we left the studio, my team had scheduled emergency planning sessions to manage the influx of support and interest. In the parking garage, Noah paused beside his car. What happens now? He asked, the question encompassing more than post-interview logistics. I studied my brother in the harsh fluorescent lighting, the person whose illness had reshaped my financial future, whose recovery had given me profound purpose, whose family's rejection had sparked my greatest professional innovation, and whose technological solution might now extend that innovation beyond anything I could achieve alone. Product development meetings start tomorrow, I said, deliberately focusing on professional next steps. The Foundation's technical team will need to integrate with your developers. We should establish regular coordination protocols. I meant, with us, the family. He met my gaze directly. Was this a one-time collaboration or the beginning of something else? The question stripped away professional pretense, exposing the personal uncertainty beneath our carefully constructed partnership. The app announcement had created a bridge between my work and my family, strategic for the Foundation but unresolved in its personal implications. I don't know, I admitted. This isn't as simple as launching an app or expanding a foundation. Trust doesn't redevelop according to project timelines. But it can redevelop? His question hung between us, hopeful, tentative, acknowledging past wounds while seeking future possibility. In that moment, I recognized that our carefully constructed strategic opportunity had created something neither of us had fully anticipated, a chance for authentic reconciliation based not on obligation or guilt, but on shared purpose and mutual respect. I'm having dinner with potential hospital partners next Friday, I said finally. The Foundation needs to solidify expansion agreements before proceeding with app integration. You should be there, as the technology partner. It wasn't a direct answer to his question about family reconciliation, but Noah recognized the significance of inclusion in the Foundation's core work. I'll be there, he promised. And Rebecca, we won't disappoint you this time. As we drove, away in separate cars, Noah toward the suburbs, me toward my downtown apartment, I realized our strategic opportunity had accomplished exactly what such maneuvers were designed to do: create leverage for change. The television segment had transformed the Foundation's public profile while simultaneously shifting the dynamics within my family. What remained unclear was whether that leverage would ultimately bridge the chasm of trust still separating me from the people whose abandonment had necessitated the creation of everything I'd built, and whose redemptive efforts might now help me build something even greater. The 2 weeks following the television appearance passed in a whirlwind of activity. The Foundation's small office transformed into a hub of constant motion. New volunteers answering phones, tech consultants evaluating integration requirements, hospital administrators arriving for partnership discussions. Our staff had doubled, then tripled, necessitating a move to larger space in the same building. Through it all, Noah appeared regularly, sometimes scheduled, sometimes unexpected. He brought coffee during late planning sessions, entertained waiting hospital executives with personalized demos, and stayed after hours to refine technical specifications with our development team. His dedication to the app's evolution was undeniable, his expertise increasingly valuable as the project expanded beyond initial projections. I maintained professional distance despite his persistent presence, cordial but guarded in our interactions. The wounds of abandonment hadn't magically healed with one television appearance or one successful collaboration. Trust, once fractured, required more than good intentions to restore. On Friday evening, I remained alone in my new corner office, reviewing hospital partnership agreements. Our legal team had flagged several potential conflicts with existing programs, requiring careful revision before Monday's signing ceremony. My concentration was broken by a soft knock. "You missed dinner again," Noah said, entering with a paper bag emitting promising aromas. "The hospital team from Mayo left an hour ago." I glanced at my watch, surprised to find it was nearly 9. "We rescheduled for breakfast tomorrow. Contract language needed adjustments." He set the bag on my desk, removing containers of Thai food, my usual order from the restaurant down the street. "Figured you hadn't eaten. The delivery guy knows you by name, which seems concerning." Occupational hazard of rebuilding a company while simultaneously launching a foundation and developing an app. I accepted the offered container with reluctant gratitude, hunger overtaking my desire for solitude. Noah settled into the chair opposite my desk, opening his own dinner. For several minutes, we ate in companionable silence, the kind that emerges between people with shared purpose, if not fully shared trust. "The development team finalized the user interface today," he said eventually. "They've incorporated all the Foundation's recommendations. It's ready for initial testing." "That's remarkably fast. We had a motivated team." He hesitated. "And I may have offered significant completion bonuses." I set down my fork. "Noah, the budget isn't your concern," he finished. "The family's commitment covers all development costs, remember? Including incentives for accelerated timelines." The reminder of his financial involvement, his family's investment in my vision, still triggered complicated emotions. Their money now propelled my work forward, creating an interdependence I hadn't fully reconciled with my lingering resentment. "There's something else," Noah continued. "The testing phase requires simulation of real-world scenarios, actual medical cases with corresponding financial complications. We need authentic experiences to validate the system's effectiveness." "The Foundation has numerous case studies we can adapt," I offered. "Anonymized but realistic." "The development team thinks we need something more dynamic." Noah's eyes met mine. "Live testing with actual family scenarios, including direct observation of user interactions." I sensed where this was heading. "You want to use Foundation clients as test subjects?" "Not exactly." He took a deep breath. "I want us, you, me, Mom, Dad, Vanessa, to use it to reconstruct my illness. To document every decision, every payment, every missed opportunity for 8 years. To create a comprehensive case study of what happened to our family." The proposal landed like a physical weight. "You want to revisit all of it? Every bill, every treatment, every financial sacrifice?" "From both perspectives this time," Noah clarified. "Your experience alongside mine. Complete transparency about costs, consequences, and alternatives we never considered." "Why?" The question emerged sharper than intended. "What purpose would That serve now? Noah set aside his dinner, leaning forward with unusual intensity. Because understanding, real understanding, requires experiencing, not just acknowledging. My medical journey devastated your financial security while I remained oblivious. Our family accepted your support without comprehending its true cost. And you think reenacting that journey will change anything? I think documenting it through the app will accomplish two essential things, he replied. First, it will provide the developers with an unparalleled longitudinal case study spanning nearly a decade of complex medical and financial interaction. That data will make the app exponentially more effective for future users. His reasoning was sound from a development perspective. The thoroughness of such documentation would indeed strengthen the platform's functionality. And second? I prompted. Noah met my gaze directly. It will force our entire family to experience your reality, not just acknowledge it intellectually, but feel the accumulating weight of each decision, each sacrifice, each moment when you stood alone while we accepted your help as given. Something shifted in my perception of my brother. A recognition that he sought not just professional collaboration or family reconciliation, but genuine understanding of an experience he could never fully share. When would this happen? I asked, neither accepting nor refusing. We've reserved the conference room at Dad's club for tomorrow afternoon. 4 hours, fully documented session. The development team will observe remotely, recording user interactions for system refinement. Tomorrow? I echoed, surprised by the immediacy. That's very soon. The signing ceremony with the hospitals is Monday, Noah reminded me. Their leadership wants assurance that the app development is proceeding as promised. Having initial testing documentation would strengthen their confidence considerably. His strategic reasoning was impeccable, professional justification for what appeared to be a deeply personal exercise. I recognized the maneuver but couldn't dismiss its potential value to the Foundation's partnerships. Who would participate? I asked, moving from resistance to cautious consideration. Mom and Dad have already committed. Vanessa is flying in tomorrow morning. I'll facilitate, and the development team will provide technical support. Noah paused. We need you there, Rebecca. Not just as the Foundation's leader, but as the person whose experience we're trying to understand. The prospect of revisiting those years, systematically cataloging every financial decision, every sacrifice, every moment when my needs became secondary to Noah's survival, carried emotional risk I wasn't certain I wanted to accept. I have breakfast with the Mayo team, I said, searching for reasonable deferral. We scheduled around that. Session starts at 1. Of course they had. The thoroughness of their planning suggested a level of commitment I hadn't anticipated, or perhaps had deliberately avoided recognizing. I'll consider it, I offered finally. Noah accepted this partial victory with a nod. That's all I'm asking. The next morning, after successfully negotiating final terms with the Mayo Hospital representatives, I found myself standing outside the private conference room at my father's downtown club. Through the frosted glass, I could see family silhouettes, my mother arranging documents, my father gesturing as he spoke, Vanessa setting up a laptop. Noah stood slightly apart, speaking with a young woman I assumed was from the development team. For several minutes, I observed this tableau of preparation. My family assembled to dissect years of financial sacrifice and interpersonal failure. The exercise seemed simultaneously necessary and futile, potentially revelatory, yet painfully exposing. With reluctant resolve, I pushed open the door. Conversation stopped as I entered. My mother stepped forward first, hesitant affection in her expression. You came. I'm here professionally, I clarified. As the Foundation's representative. Noah introduced Priya, the app's lead developer, who explained the session's structure. We'll proceed chronologically through major medical events, documenting treatments, costs, payment sources, and financial impact. The goal is comprehensive data collection while testing the app's functionality in complex scenarios. The conference table displayed an unsettling array of materials: medical records, insurance statements, bank documents, foundation research. 8 years of crisis distilled into organized piles of paper and digital files. "Where did you get all this?" I asked, recognizing documents I'd assumed were long discarded. "Mom kept everything," Noah explained. "Every bill, every insurance denial, every payment record. She just never processed what they meant collectively." My mother nodded, unexpected tears brightening her eyes. "I saved the papers but didn't understand the story they told about you, Rebecca." Priya directed each of us to iPads loaded with prototype versions of the MedLife Navigator app. "We'll input information collaboratively, tracking both medical progression and financial impact simultaneously." What followed was the most extraordinary 5 hours of my adult life. A meticulous reconstruction of Noah's illness and my corresponding financial disintegration. We began with diagnosis, documenting initial treatments and insurance responses. As we progressed through experimental therapies and specialist consultations, we simultaneously tracked my growing financial commitments: liquidated investments, second mortgage, depleted retirement accounts. The app created parallel timelines: Noah's physical improvement alongside my financial decline. Visualizations depicted the inverse relationship between his health metrics and my financial stability. Resource algorithms identified assistance, programs we'd never known existed, and financing options I'd never considered. February 2019, my father read from a medical summary. "Experimental immunotherapy approved, but not covered by insurance. Estimated out-of-pocket cost, $187,000. Silence fell as everyone turned to me. "I sold my condo," I said quietly, entering the information into the app. "Took a $42,000 loss in a buyer's market. Moved to a one-bedroom apartment with significant early lease termination penalties from my previous place." The app calculated the long-term financial impact: lost equity, additional interest costs on subsequent debt, tax implications of the transaction. "You never told us," my mother whispered. "You never asked," I replied without accusation, the simple truth hanging between us. As the timeline progressed, my family's expressions transformed from clinical observation to growing horror. The aggregate effect of seemingly isolated financial decisions revealed a devastating pattern: systematic dismantling of my financial security while Noah gradually recovered. When we reached the final medical milestone, Noah's transition to maintenance therapy, Priya directed us to a summary screen displaying total impact analysis. The figures silenced the room. 8 years of medical costs, 8 years of my financial sacrifices, 8 years of opportunities lost, security abandoned, future stability compromised. "I had no idea," Noah said, voice barely audible. "The totality of it." My father stared at the screen, complexion ashen. "When you came to us for help with your business, we dismissed a request for 1/10 of what you'd given without hesitation." The app's final analysis module performed a simulation particularly painful in its clarity. A projection of where my finances would be today had I not supported Noah's medical journey, contrasted with my actual financial position following years of systematic depletion. "This is why the foundation exists," I said, breaking the weighted silence. "This precise scenario plays out for thousands of families every day. Sacrifice disguised as choice, financial devastation masked as loving support." Vanessa, uncharacteristically quiet throughout the session, looked up from her iPad. "The app does more than document past decisions. It models alternative approaches for current situations." She turned her screen toward me, showing a detailed pathway for rebuilding financial security after catastrophic medical expenditure. We designed that module specifically for caregivers recovering from extended support periods, Priya explained. The Foundation's research showed significant post-care financial trauma among primary support providers. As the technical team collected our devices and began packing equipment, my family remained seated, a collective stunned silence enveloping the conference room. The depth of understanding I'd sought for years had finally been achieved, not through explanation or persuasion, but through systematic, data-driven immersion in my experience. Noah approached as I gathered my belongings, his expression transformed by the afternoon's revelations. I knew intellectually what you'd sacrificed, but feeling it, seeing it mapped in detail. He struggled for words. It's different. Overwhelming. That's why the app matters, I acknowledged. Numbers alone don't convey lived experience. Context does. My mother joined us, eyes red from silent tears shed throughout the session. All these years, we thought we understood. We didn't even come close. As we left the conference room, I realized something had fundamentally shifted, not just in my family's perception of the past, but in my own understanding of the path forward. The app designed to help others had become the unexpected vehicle for a perspective transformation. None of us had fully anticipated. The experience had forced my family to inhabit my reality, not through imagination or empathy, but through methodical reconstruction of choices, consequences, and cumulative impact. In doing so, it had created the possibility for understanding, deeper than mere acknowledgement, reconciliation based on shared truth rather than obligation. Walking to my car, I received a text from Priya. Testing session exceeded expectations. Data invaluable for development. Ready to proceed with hospital demonstration on Monday. The message confirmed the professional success of our exercise. What remained unquantified was its personal impact, the transformation occurring in 5 people who had entered that room as fractured family and departed with a shared experience that might, possibly, become the foundation for something new. Monday morning arrived with the peculiar clarity that follows emotional upheaval. The Foundation's lobby buzzed with anticipation. Hospital executives in pressed suits mingled with board members. Media representatives hovered near the refreshment table, and development team members conducted final system checks on the demonstration stations. I stood slightly apart, reviewing my presentation notes while observing this convergence of opportunity. Today's partnership signing would formalize the Foundation's expansion to 5 major hospital systems, a milestone achievement made possible by my family's rejection and subsequent redemptive efforts. Everything's ready, Mia reported, appearing at my side with 2 coffee cups. Demonstration stations are operational, partnership agreements are finalized, press packets are distributed. We're just waiting for your family to arrive for the app presentation. I accepted the coffee gratefully. Any word from Noah? His team is running final diagnostics upstairs. Your parents and sister arrived a few minutes ago. They're in the conference room with the Mayo representatives. The mention of my family triggered an unexpected flutter of anxiety. Since Saturday's testing session, we'd maintained communication exclusively through technical channels, Noah sending system updates, my father forwarding contract reviews from his attorney, Vanessa sharing media coverage analyses. The emotional aftermath of our shared experience remained unaddressed, deferred by mutual unspoken agreement until after today's event. 5 minutes until we start, Mia reminded me, glancing at her watch. Need anything else? I'm fine, I assured her, though fine inadequately described the complicated amalgam of professional confidence and personal uncertainty I was experiencing. The conference room had been transformed for the occasion. Rows of chairs faced a small stage, demonstration stations lined the perimeter walls, and professional lighting highlighted the Foundation and MedLife Navigator logos projected behind. The podium. As I entered, hospital executives rose to greet me, board members offered encouraging nods, and journalists positioned recording devices. In the front row sat my family, my parents in coordinated business attire, Vanessa immaculately styled for potential photos, and Noah reviewing notes with Priya. Their collective presence at this pivotal professional moment felt simultaneously supportive and surreal, a blending of worlds I'd deliberately kept separate for months. The program proceeded with practiced precision. I welcomed attendees, outlined the Foundation's expanded hospital initiatives, and introduced the partnership representatives. Each hospital executive spoke briefly, emphasizing the innovative nature of our financial navigation services for patients and families. And now, I concluded as the final hospital speaker returned to her seat, I'm pleased to introduce the technological component of our expanded services, the MedLife Navigator application, designed to integrate medical and financial management for patients with complex conditions. Noah took the stage, projecting calm expertise as he explained the app's core functionality. Using anonymized patient scenarios, he demonstrated how the platform tracked treatments, costs, insurance responses, and payment options in real time. The audience responded with appreciative murmurs as he showcased resource connectors linking users to assistance programs, clinical trials, and support services. The most powerful aspect of MedLife Navigator, Noah continued, transitioning to the final demonstration segment, is its ability to model long-term impact across both medical and financial dimensions. To illustrate this functionality, we've prepared a comprehensive case study based on a real patient journey. My breath caught as the screen displayed a timeline I recognized immediately. Not anonymized data from our test session, but the actual reconstruction of Noah's illness and my corresponding financial journey. The revelation I'd anticipated would remain private was about to become the centerpiece of our public presentation. Before I could intervene, Noah continued. 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune condition requiring experimental treatments largely uncovered by insurance. The medical community ultimately saved my life through innovative therapies. What remained undocumented, until now, was the devastating financial impact of those life-saving interventions on my primary support provider, my sister Rebecca. The room fell silent as Noah navigated through the same system modules we'd populated during Saturday's session. Parallel timelines showing his health recovery alongside my financial decline, resource gaps that went unaddressed, assistance programs we'd never discovered, retirement accounts prematurely liquidated, and opportunities permanently lost. Over 8 years, Noah said, his voice steady but emotion evident. Rebecca contributed over $647,000 to my medical care, liquidating her assets systematically while maintaining the appearance of financial stability. When her business later faced challenges requiring outside investment, our family, myself included, failed to recognize our obligation to reciprocate her support. I sat frozen, watching this public disclosure of our private failure. The narrative I'd carefully controlled, presenting the Foundation's origin as inspired innovation rather than desperate response to abandonment, was being systematically dismantled by my brother's unflinching honesty. This application exists, Noah continued, gesturing to the screen, because our family finally recognized what should have been obvious. Medical crises create financial victims beyond the patients themselves. The caregivers, the support providers, the family members who sacrifice without hesitation, they need protection and advocacy as surely as patients need treatment. Hospital representatives exchanged meaningful glances. Board members leaned forward with increased attention. Journalists scribbled notes with renewed intensity. The Morgan Foundation emerged from this precise scenario, Noah acknowledged, meeting my gaze directly. It exists because our family failed to understand the true cost of caregiving until it was almost too late. MedLife Navigator ensures other families won't repeat our mistakes. It makes the invisible visible, the unacknowledged undeniable. As Noah concluded his presentation, the room erupted in applause. Not the polite professional acknowledgement of technological innovation, but the emotional response to authentic human revelation. I remained seated, processing the implications of my brother's public disclosure. The truth I'd contained within carefully constructed professional boundaries had been deliberately, strategically released. Following the formal presentation and signing ceremony, journalists surrounded Noah, seeking elaboration on the personal story behind the foundation and app. Hospital executives approached me with newfound appreciation for the personal experience, informing our programs. Board members expressed admiration for the transparency embedded in our mission. When the crowd finally thinned, I found Noah in the demonstration area, shutting down equipment with Priya and her team. "You didn't warn me," I said quietly. He straightened, dismissing the technical team with a nod before turning to face me. "Would you have approved?" "No. That's why I didn't ask." His expression held neither defiance nor apology, only calm certainty. The foundation's work is too important to be built on partial truths. You exposed our family's failure to an audience of journalists and potential partners. I exposed our family's journey to understanding, he corrected. The failure was private. The learning should be public. I studied my brother, the person whose illness had begun this complicated journey, whose recovery had proceeded alongside my financial decline, whose family's rejection had sparked my professional reinvention, and whose honesty had now stripped away the protective narrative I'd constructed around it all. "You changed the foundation's story today," I said finally. "From clinical financial navigation service to personal redemption project." "I revealed its true origin," Noah countered, "which makes its purpose infinitely more compelling." Before I could respond, my father approached, hospital contracts in hand. The Mayo representative added additional facilities to their implementation timeline, says their board was particularly moved by the personal element of our presentation. Northwestern and Cleveland Clinic are requesting expanded services as well, my mother added, joining us with Vanessa. They want caregiver financial counseling as a standard component of their patient support programs. Vanessa scrolled through her phone. Social media response is overwhelming. MedLife Navigator and Morgan Foundation are trending nationally. Personal stories are already flooding in, families sharing similar experiences, thanking us for acknowledging the financial impact on caregivers. The professional implications were undeniable. Noah's truth revelation had transformed our narrative, from institutional innovation to human mission, resonating far more powerfully than my carefully constructed presentation ever could. This wasn't just about the foundation, was it? I asked Noah when our parents stepped away to speak with lingering board members. He met my gaze directly. "Saturday's session showed us what you experienced. Today, I wanted everyone else to understand it too, not just as a business case, but as human reality." "Why?" "Because authentic healing requires complete truth," he said simply. "For 8 years, you carried my burden alone. For 6 months, you built the foundation alone. I couldn't change either of those realities, but I could ensure you wouldn't carry the story alone." His words penetrated the protective barrier I'd maintained since that family dinner when they'd rejected my request for help, the moment that had simultaneously broken and birthed me. Noah hadn't just acknowledged our family's failure, he'd claimed public ownership of it, transforming private shame into shared mission. As the event concluded and staff began dismantling the presentation area, Mia approached with barely contained excitement. "Rebecca, you need to see this. Donation notifications are overwhelming our system. We've received over $2 million since Noah's presentation ended, and 3 major healthcare foundations are requesting partnership discussions." The revelation's impact extended beyond emotional catharsis or professional strategy. It had catalyzed concrete support for the very mission born from my family's failure. The truth Noah had insisted on sharing hadn't diminished the foundation's credibility. It had profoundly enhanced it. Later that evening, as I sat alone in my office reviewing partnership agreements, my phone lit up with a text from Noah. Family. Dinner at my place Sunday? No agenda, no app testing, no foundation business, just family. The invitation hung unanswered as I contemplated the day's events. Noah's public disclosure had removed the final barrier between my professional and personal worlds, between the story I'd crafted and the truth I'd lived. The carefully maintained separation between family rejection and foundation creation had dissolved, replaced by an integrated narrative I hadn't chosen but couldn't deny. In revealing the complete truth about our family's journey, Noah had forced me to confront a more complicated reality than the clean narrative of abandonment and reinvention I'd embraced. The foundation hadn't succeeded despite my family, but because of them. First through their failure that necessitated its creation, and now through their commitment to extending its impact. My phone buzzed again with a follow-up message. Lily keeps asking when Auntie Beck is coming back. The mention of my niece, innocent of our adult complications, unconcerned with past failures, shifted something fundamental in my perspective. The truth revealed today wasn't simply about documenting past wounds. It was about acknowledging how those wounds had transformed into something unexpectedly meaningful for countless others. I typed a response. I'll bring dessert. As I gathered my belongings to leave, the Foundation's mission statement, mounted on the wall opposite my desk, caught my attention. Words I'd crafted months ago in solitary determination now carried new resonance, transforming medical crisis into financial empowerment through education, advocacy, and direct support. The truth Noah had insisted on revealing wasn't just that our family had failed me when I needed them most. The deeper truth, the one I'd been reluctant to acknowledge, was that this failure had created something essential, something transformative, something that wouldn't exist without the very abandonment I'd resented. Sometimes the most powerful truths emerge not from victory, but from defeat. Not from support, but from its absence. Not from vindication, but from vulnerability, finally. Completely acknowledged. Sunday dinner at Noah and Diane's home carried the weight of unspoken expectations. I arrived precisely on time, bakery box in hand. The same ritual performed months earlier when I'd reluctantly re-entered family space after prolonged absence. This time, however, the awkward tension of that first reunion had been replaced by something more complex, a nervous anticipation surrounding relationships fundamentally altered by truth revealed. Lily greeted me with the unbridled enthusiasm, unique to 3-year-olds, launching herself at my legs the moment I stepped through the door. Auntie Beck, I drawed you pictures at school. Let your aunt at least get inside, Diane laughed, appearing behind her daughter. She embraced me with unexpected warmth. Thank you for coming. The home's interior exuded deliberate normalcy. Sunday. Dinner preparations underway in the kitchen. Football playing at low volume in the living room. Patrick napping in a portable crib near the dining table. My parents and Vanessa were already present, engaged in what appeared to be casual conversation, but fell suspiciously silent as I entered. Rebecca's here, my mother announced unnecessarily, rising to embrace me. Her hug lingered longer than usual, communicating something words had failed to express since Monday's revelation. My father approached next, clearing his throat in that particular way that signaled emotional discomfort. The Foundation's been all over the news this week. Impressive coverage. The personal angle resonated more deeply than anticipated, I acknowledged, setting dessert on the counter. Noah's presentation strategy proved effective. Noah emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Strategy implies calculation. I just told the truth. An uncomfortable silence followed, the first acknowledgement of Monday's public disclosure since it occurred. The Foundation's subsequent whirlwind of activity had provided convenient deferral of personal discussion. Today offered no such professional buffer. Dinner's almost ready, Diane interjected, gracefully navigating the tension. Rebecca, would you mind helping me with the salad? In the kitchen, she handed me a knife and cutting board with practiced efficiency. They've been nervous all day, she confided, voice low. Especially Noah. He's checked the roast about 17 times. Why would Noah be nervous? He got exactly what he wanted on Monday. Diane paused her dinner preparations, studying me with unexpected directness. Is that what you think? That Monday was about Noah getting what he wanted? His presentation transformed our narrative without my consent. The Foundation's origin story is now inextricably linked to our family's failure. And you see that as self-serving on his part? Diane resumed chopping vegetables, her tone measured. Not as someone finally finding courage to take public responsibility for his role in hurting you? Her perspective gave me pause. I'd interpreted Noah's revelation primarily as strategic calculation benefiting the Foundation's mission, not as personal accountability undertaken at considerable risk. Noah's been different since the app testing session, Diane continued softly. That night, after you left, he couldn't sleep. Kept saying he finally understood what you'd lost because of him. Not just money, but years, opportunities, security. Before I could respond, my father appeared in the kitchen doorway. Could I borrow Rebecca for a moment? There's something I'd like to show her before dinner. Curious, I followed him to the home office where he retrieved a leather portfolio from his briefcase. I've been waiting for the right moment to give you this, he explained, opening the folder to reveal legal documents bearing the Morgan family trust letterhead. I recognized the paperwork immediately. Trust fund distributions requiring family trustee signatures, traditionally dispersed in equal portions upon specified life events or age milestones. These are succession documents, I observed, scanning the highlighted sections. You're transitioning trustee authority. He nodded. After 40 years as primary trustee, I'm establishing you as my replacement, effective immediately. The significance wasn't lost on me. The Morgan Family Trust, established by my grandparents, and expanded through my father's investments, represented our most substantial shared asset. Trustee authority traditionally passed to the eldest son in each generation, a patriarchal convention my progressive father had nonetheless maintained when transferring preliminary powers to Noah 5 years earlier. Why now? I asked, struggling to keep my voice neutral. Noah's been handling preliminary trustee responsibilities since his recovery. My father's expression reflected uncomfortable self-awareness. Because I finally understand that financial stewardship requires more than mathematical aptitude. It demands recognition of human value beyond balance sheets. He met my gaze directly. You've always understood that better than any of us. The documents in my hand represented more than administrative reassignment. They symbolized profound acknowledgement of worth previously unrecognized. For decades, I'd managed my own financial affairs with meticulous care while simultaneously supporting Noah through crisis. Yet trustee authority, the family's ultimate expression of financial confidence, had defaulted to my brother through unexamined tradition. Noah requested this, my father admitted. After Saturday's app session, he insisted you were the only logical choice for trustee succession, said his illness had demonstrated your financial judgment while exposing his limitations. The revelation of Noah's involvement complicated my reaction. Was this genuine transformation or elaborate atonement? Authentic recognition of capability or performance of remorse? Does Noah know you're doing this now? I asked. He suggested using today's gathering, said if we're truly rebuilding relationships, we needed to address the financial imbalances at their core. My father hesitated. Rebecca, I've been managing money for 40 years, but failed to recognize the most important investment we could have made, in you, when you needed us. His admission, direct, unqualified, carried the weight of decades of unacknowledged gender bias and familial expectation. The financial authority I'd consistently demonstrated had remained professionally respected but familially overlooked. I need time to review these properly, I said, closing the portfolio. Financial responsibility of this magnitude requires careful consideration. He nodded, accepting my measured response without protest. Of course, that prudence is precisely why you should be trustee. When we returned to the dining room, conversations paused briefly before resuming with deliberate casualness. Noah caught my eye, a question in his expression. I offered a slight nod, acknowledgement without commitment. Dinner proceeded with surprising ease, Lily's preschool anecdotes providing neutral territory, Patrick's developmental milestones offering safe conversation paths. Beneath this surface normalcy, however, currents of unspoken transformation circulated. My mother, typically quick to direct conversation, repeatedly deferred to my opinions. Vanessa, usually focused on her own concerns, asked thoughtful questions about the Foundation's hospital implementations. Most notably, Noah, historically confident in directing family dynamics, remained unusually subdued throughout the meal. He participated when engaged, but initiated little, creating space rather than occupying it. The brother who had commanded attention through illness and recovery now deliberately redirected focus to others, particularly me. As Diane served dessert, Noah finally addressed what everyone had delicately avoided. I owe you an apology for Monday, Rebecca. Using our family's actual case study without your explicit approval was presumptuous. The directness of his acknowledgement silenced the table. The Foundation benefited considerably from your disclosure, I acknowledged. Donations have increased 300% since the presentation. 2 additional hospital systems have requested partnership. Discussions. But that doesn't justify overriding your privacy, he persisted. Professional success doesn't excuse personal boundary violations. His insistence on accountability rather than results, prioritizing relational integrity over strategic outcomes, marked significant departure from the brother I'd known. The Noah of the past would have justified any action yielding positive results, particularly when intentions were ostensibly good. Why did you do it? I asked, the question emerging more gently than I'd anticipated. Noah considered his response carefully. Because I finally understood something fundamental about our relationship. For 8 years, I focused exclusively on my survival while you sacrificed silently for that survival. Then when roles reversed, when your business needed saving, I remained equally self-focused, concerned about my own financial security instead of reciprocating your support. He took a steadying breath before continuing. Monday's presentation was my attempt to ensure your story, your sacrifice, received proper acknowledgement, not just privately among family who failed you, but publicly among people who could extend its impact. Noah spent 3 days preparing that presentation, my mother added quietly. Rehearsed continuously, wanting to ensure he captured everything accurately. The night before, Diane contributed, he barely slept, kept saying he couldn't afford to get any detail wrong because your experience deserved complete truth. These glimpses behind Noah's public disclosure revealed motivations more complex than I'd assumed. Not calculated strategy, but deliberate amplification of a voice too long diminished. The brother who had once accepted my support as expected, obligation had transformed into an advocate insistent on illuminating that support's true cost. I've been thinking a lot about patterns, Noah continued, about how easily we slip into roles, the responsible one, the vulnerable one, the one who gives, the one who receives. For most of our adult lives, I've been the family's primary concern, while you've been the family's primary support. Monday's presentation wasn't just about the app or the foundation, it was about disrupting that pattern permanently. His insight struck uncomfortably close to truths I'd harbored privately, resentments about familial roles assigned rather than chosen, expectations based on perceived strength rather than actual capacity. The trustee documents, I said, understanding, dawning. That was part of your pattern disruption. Noah nodded. The trust represents more than money. It's symbolic authority over family financial legacy. That authority belongs with the person who's demonstrated actual financial wisdom, not the person assigned the role through tradition. My brother, the former recipient of my one-directional support, the person whose medical needs had restructured my financial future, the family member who had participated in my abandonment during crisis, had undergone transformation I hadn't fully recognized. His actions since the app testing session reflected not just remorse for past failures, but fundamental recalibration of familial dynamics moving forward. I'm still processing Monday's presentation, I admitted finally. The public disclosure was unexpected, but I can't deny its effectiveness. Effectiveness wasn't the priority, Noah corrected gently. Truth was. Your truth, specifically, the reality of what supporting me actually cost you. As dinner concluded and family conversation fragmented into smaller interactions, I found myself on the back patio with Noah, watching twilight soften the landscape of his suburban yard. Patrick slept peacefully in my arms, his small weight a reminder of life's continuity beyond individual wounds and reconciliations. The foundation exceeded its 5-year development goals in 5 days following your presentation, I told him, professional acknowledgement easier than personal. The authentic origin story resonates with donors and partners far more powerfully than our previous messaging. I'm glad, Noah said simply, but that wasn't why I did it. I know. The admission came more easily than expected. You did it because some truths need witnesses, because carrying certain stories alone becomes unsustainable. He nodded, recognition flickering in his expression. The app tracks financial decisions but can't measure their emotional weight. That burden shouldn't be carried alone, especially by the person who supported everyone else. The transformation in my brother wasn't just performative remorse or strategic calculation. It was fundamental recalibration of perspective. The person who had once accepted sacrifice as his due now insisted on equality of vulnerability, reciprocity of support, and public acknowledgement of previously private obligation. The trustee role, I said carefully. I'll accept it with one condition. Name it. Shared authority. Financial decisions made in consultation between us, combining your medical knowledge with my financial experience. Noah's expression registered surprise followed by thoughtful consideration. Shared responsibility rather than role reversal. That's significantly healthier than simply transferring authority from one person to another. The foundation teaches financial partnership rather than dependence, I explained. We should model that approach within our own family. As we stood in comfortable silence watching darkness settle over the yard, I recognized the profound nature of Noah's transformation. My brother had progressed beyond mere acknowledgement of past failures into active reconstruction of relationship patterns, disrupting hierarchies, redistributing authority, and insisting on reciprocal vulnerability previously absent from our family system. The antagonist in my story of abandonment and reinvention had undergone evolution more complex than simple redemption narrative. Noah hadn't merely recognized his wrong and sought forgiveness, he had fundamentally recalibrated. His understanding of family obligation, financial reciprocity, and shared truth. I never wanted to be the person who failed you, he said finally, breaking our comfortable silence. But becoming the person who learns from that failure, who helps ensure others don't repeat it, might be the most important role I'll ever have. His words contained neither self-congratulation nor plea for absolution, only quiet recognition that transformation emerges not from denial of past wrongs, but from their complete incorporation into new understanding. The brother who had once accepted my sacrifice as expected had become the advocate insisting its true cost be recognized, honored, and never again overlooked. 3 months after Noah's public revelation transformed the Foundation's narrative, I stood in the atrium of Chicago Memorial Hospital, watching families navigate the space with varying degrees of medical anxiety. Some clutched paperwork with visible confusion, others checked phones for appointment details, and a few sat in quiet resignation, the particular stillness of people for whom hospital visits had become routine. What distinguished this scene from similar ones I'd witnessed throughout Noah's illness was a small office nestled between the information desk and pharmacy. Above its door hung a simple sign, Financial Navigation Center, a service of the Morgan Foundation. Through the glass partition, I could see two of our counselors meeting with families, one explaining insurance documents to an elderly couple, another helping a young mother complete assistance program applications on a tablet. The center operated 16 hours daily, providing immediate financial guidance to anyone referred by medical staff or walking in with questions. "Excuse me, are you Rebecca Morgan?" I turned to find a woman approximately my age, professional attire suggesting hospital administration rather than patient status. "I am," I confirmed, extending my hand. "Lauren Michaels." Her handshake was firm, direct. "My brother was diagnosed with lymphoma last month. Your foundation's counselor helped us understand our insurance coverage gaps yesterday." "I hope you found the guidance useful," I replied, falling into the professional response pattern developed over months of similar encounters. "Useful doesn't begin to cover it." Her voice caught slightly. "Your counselor identified 3 assistance programs we qualified for, explained insurance appeal processes for denied treatments, and helped us create a financial sustainability plan that won't bankrupt our parents." The specificity of her gratitude suggested personal investment beyond professional courtesy. "Your parents are contributing to your brother's care?" they insisted. She smiled ruefully. "They're liquidating their retirement investments to cover his experimental treatment protocol, a decision I've been fighting because I've seen this scenario before. My colleague's sister did the same thing for him years ago. She covered his medical expenses until she had nothing left. When her business later faced crisis, the family couldn't reciprocate." The parallel to my own experience created momentary vertigo. "That sounds familiar." "It should." Lauren studied me with increasing recognition. "You're that Rebecca Morgan, aren't you? The one from the MedLife Navigator presentation? Your brother was the patient in that case study." Since Noah's public disclosure, I'd encountered this recognition regularly, my private experience now part of the Foundation's public narrative. Initially uncomfortable with this visibility, I'd gradually recognized its effectiveness in establishing immediate credibility with families facing similar circumstances. "My brother recovered fully," I confirmed, "but the financial aftermath of supporting him altered my life permanently." "That's why we're here," Lauren said, gesturing toward the navigation center. "My parents watched the recording of your brother's presentation. It fundamentally changed their approach to financing Eli's treatment. They're still contributing, but with structured limitations and formal loan documentation, protecting their retirement while supporting his care." This represented precisely the impact we'd designed the foundation to create, transforming emotional financial decisions into sustainable support structures. "I'm glad your family found guidance before making irrevocable choices." The financial navigation is critically important, Lauren acknowledged. But equally valuable was seeing a family acknowledge what supporting serious illness actually costs. Your brother's public recognition of what you sacrificed validated concerns families rarely express aloud. Her observation highlighted an unexpected outcome of Noah's revelation. Beyond practical financial guidance, the foundation now provided emotional validation for caregivers whose sacrifices typically remained unacknowledged. "Your foundation is changing the conversation around medical financial support," Lauren continued, "making it permissible for families to discuss sustainability alongside solidarity." As we concluded our conversation with contact exchange and promises of continued connection, I noticed Noah entering the hospital atrium. He spotted me immediately, navigating through the busy space with purpose. "Sorry I'm late," he apologized, reaching my side. Development meeting ran over. The integration team had questions about the patient portal interface. "I was just speaking with someone whose family benefited from the navigation center," I told him, watching Lauren disappear into the elevator. "They viewed your presentation recording." Noah's expression registered both satisfaction and humility, the complex response he'd developed to learning how his public acknowledgement had catalyzed broader impact. That keeps happening. Priya says the app's user testimonials consistently reference the case study as their motivation for early adoption. We proceeded through the hospital toward the administrative wing where hospital executives awaited our quarterly progress presentation. Along the route, medical staff greeted us with increasing familiarity. The Foundation's presence now integrated into the hospital's operational fabric. Dr. Abernathy confirmed the psychiatric department wants to implement our model, Noah reported as we walked. They've recognized significant financial trauma among families managing long-term mental health care. That would expand our services into entirely new treatment domains, I noted, mentally calculating implementation requirements. We'd need specialized counselors familiar with behavioral health insurance complexities. The app development team is already working on a psychiatric care module. Vanessa's connecting us with behavioral health advocacy organizations for expert consultation. The casual mention of our sister's involvement reflected another dimension of the Foundation's broader impact, its gradual absorption of family members into its mission. Vanessa's marketing expertise had proven invaluable for outreach initiatives. My father's financial connections had opened doors at previously inaccessible institutions. My mother had begun volunteering weekly at the Navigation Center, providing childcare for parents attending financial counseling sessions. What had begun as my solitary response to abandonment had evolved into a family mission extending far beyond original reconciliation efforts. The Foundation's work had created purpose transcending individual healing, a shared commitment to transforming systemic failures we'd experienced firsthand. Our quarterly presentation to hospital administration proceeded with expected efficiency. I outlined expansion metrics, Noah demonstrated app adoption statistics, and together, we proposed psychiatric service integration. The hospital's CEO committed additional implementation resources without hesitation, citing patient satisfaction surveys identifying financial navigation as their most valuable new service. Afterward, traveling between the hospital and Foundation headquarters, Noah broached the subject we'd been circling professionally for weeks. "The National Healthcare Administrators Conference invited us to present next month," he said, reviewing the email on his phone. "They're offering a keynote slot, main stage, full audience, maximum exposure." "That's significant validation," I acknowledged. "Who's us, specifically?" "They want both of us, the Foundation creator and the case study patient. Our unique perspective as siblings on opposite sides of the medical financial equation." The invitation represented both professional opportunity and personal challenge. While our family reconciliation had progressed substantially, presenting our story together on a national stage would require vulnerability neither of us had fully anticipated when rebuilding our relationship. "We'd need to develop presentation parameters," I said cautiously. "Establish boundaries around which aspects of our experience are discussed publicly." "Absolutely," Noah agreed immediately. "Professional impact without excessive personal exposure." His immediate accommodation of my concerns exemplified his transformed approach to our relationship, consistently prioritizing my comfort above strategic advantage, even when potential Foundation benefit was substantial. As we arrived at Foundation headquarters, the impact of our work was unmistakably visible. What had begun in my apartment with 10 employees now occupied 2 floors of office space housing 65 staff members. Navigation centers operated in 12 hospitals across 4 states. The app's user base expanded daily, with medical institutions increasingly incorporating it into standard discharge protocols. In the conference room, Mia awaited with our leadership team, a diverse group of financial advisors, healthcare administration, specialists, and technical developers united by commitment to transforming how families navigated medical financial crises. The Cleveland implementation exceeded quarterly goals by 42%, she reported as we settled around the table. Their patient financial distress metrics show significant improvement since our services integrated with discharge planning. Similar success reports followed, Minnesota showing unprecedented assistance program enrollment rates, Detroit demonstrating remarkable reduction in medical bankruptcy filings among program participants, Atlanta documenting improved treatment adherence among patients receiving financial navigation services. We've been approached about potential international expansion, Mia added, displaying an email from a Canadian healthcare consortium. They're interested in adapting our model for their system. The implications of such expansion, translating our services to fundamentally different healthcare structures, would require careful consideration. Yet the Foundation's core mission of financial navigation during medical crisis remained universally relevant despite varying insurance frameworks. When the meeting concluded, Noah lingered as others departed. "I've been thinking about the conference presentation," he said once we were alone. "What if we approached it differently than expected?" "How so?" "Instead of presenting as expert and subject, Foundation creator and case study patient, what if we presented as equal participants in a system that failed us both differently? Me through medical vulnerability without financial guidance, you through caregiver exploitation, without reciprocal support." His suggestion reflected continued evolution in his perspective, moving beyond simplistic victim-supporter categorization toward recognition of how systemic failures affect all participants, merely in different manifestations. That approach could powerfully demonstrate why the Foundation's work matters, I acknowledged, showing how financial navigation protects both patients and caregivers from preventable harm. Exactly. The Foundation exists because both sides of the medical, financial equation need protection: patients from predatory systems, caregivers from unsustainable sacrifice. As we discussed presentation possibilities, my phone buzzed with a notification from the Foundation's media monitoring service. The alert displayed a headline from a major business publication: Morgan Foundation Model Proposed for National Implementation by Senator Harrington. Noah peered over my shoulder at the article. Medicare reform legislation incorporating our financial navigation framework? That's significant escalation of impact. The legislation, named the Medical Financial Navigation Act, would require hospitals receiving federal funding to provide financial guidance services similar to our Foundation's model. If passed, it would transform our approach from innovative nonprofit initiative to national standard of care. "We should contact Harrington's office," Noah suggested. "Offer consultation on implementation requirements." "This isn't just about our Foundation anymore," I realized aloud. "It's about changing the fundamental relationship between medical treatment and financial protection across the entire system." What had begun as my response to family abandonment, creating services I wished had existed during Noah's illness, had evolved into potential national policy. The broader impact extended far beyond our family reconciliation or even the Foundation's direct services, potentially altering how every American family navigated medical financial decisions. "Remember when you said the Foundation was your response to having no one to help you?" Noah asked quietly. "Now you might help everyone." The observation captured the extraordinary trajectory from personal wound to systemic solution, from individual abandonment to collective protection. The Foundation born from my family's failure to support me was evolving into a movement potentially preventing similar failures for countless others. Later that evening, I received an unexpected call from a number I didn't recognize. The woman, introduced herself as Senator Harrington's healthcare policy director, requesting a meeting to discuss the Foundation's approach to financial navigation. "Your model addresses a critical gap in our healthcare system," she explained. "The senator believes it should become standard practice nationwide, protecting families from unnecessary financial devastation during medical crisis." As I scheduled, the meeting that might translate our Foundation's work into national policy, I reflected on the extraordinary chain of events connecting personal betrayal to potential systemic transformation. My family's failure to support me during business crisis had created the impetus for services now potentially benefiting millions. The broader impact of that painful rejection extended far beyond personal reconciliation or professional reinvention. It had catalyzed a movement fundamentally reimagining how families navigated the intersection of medical necessity and financial sustainability. That night, as I reviewed presentation materials for our upcoming congressional testimony, my phone lit up with a text from Noah. "Just saw the Harrington legislation news. From family crisis to national policy in less than a year. Your response to our failure might transform healthcare finance for generations." His message acknowledged what we'd both gradually recognized, that the Foundation's impact transcended our personal healing journey. What had begun as my response to abandonment had evolved into something with potential to protect countless families from experiences like mine. Sometimes, I reflected as I prepared to help shape legislation that might transform millions of lives, our greatest contributions emerge not from our moments of support and success, but from our experiences of abandonment and failure. If we transform those wounds into wisdom, others can use to navigate their own darkest moments. 1 year to the day after my family had refused my request for business assistance, I stood at a podium in Washington, D.C., addressing the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. The cavernous hearing room, with its ornate ceiling and imposing architecture, seemed designed to intimidate citizen witnesses. Yet as I presented the Foundation's approach to medical financial navigation, I felt none of the anxiety such settings typically inspire. "The current system creates 2 categories of casualties," I explained, gesturing toward the data displayed on monitors. "Patients who sacrifice treatment quality due to cost considerations, and caregivers who sacrifice financial security to ensure loved ones receive necessary care. Both scenarios produce preventable harm." Committee members leaned forward with unusual attentiveness. Senator Harrington, the legislation's primary sponsor, nodded encouragingly as I outlined implementation requirements for national financial navigation services. "The Medical Financial Navigation Act isn't merely about providing information," I emphasized, approaching my conclusion. "It's about fundamentally realigning power within our healthcare system, ensuring families make informed decisions rather than desperate ones." Noah sat in the row behind me, ready to testify next about his patient perspective. In the months since our reconciliation, we'd developed a powerful tandem presentation approach. My systemic analysis complemented by his lived experience, technical explanations balanced with personal narrative. When questioning began, Senator Harrington addressed us both. "Ms. Morgan, Mr. Morgan, your foundation emerged from personal experience with medical financial devastation. Could you elaborate on how that experience informed your approach to systemic solution?" Noah and I exchanged glances, silently confirming our agreed boundaries for public disclosure. While our family's journey had become integral to the Foundation's origin story, we maintained careful distinction between productive vulnerability and unnecessary exposure. "Our experience revealed 3 critical gaps," I responded, focusing on systemic implications rather than personal details. First, the absence of integrated medical and financial planning during treatment decisions. Second, the lack of protection for primary financial supporters. Third, the failure to recognize how medical financial trauma extends beyond the patient to affect entire family systems. Noah leaned toward his microphone. "As the patient in our case study, I benefited from life-saving treatments while remaining largely unaware of their devastating financial impact on my sister. That information asymmetry created long-term damage that proper financial navigation could have prevented. And yet, Senator Harrington observed, that very experience catalyzed a solution potentially benefiting millions of Americans. It's remarkable how personal adversity translated into systemic improvement. Her comment captured the paradox at the heart of our journey. How profound failure had produced extraordinary possibility. How rejection had sparked innovation. How abandonment had created connection far beyond what support might have inspired. Following the hearing, Noah and I navigated the Capitol corridors toward the exit, trailed by foundation staff and legislative aides exchanging contact information for follow-up consultations. Senator Harrington's chief of staff thinks the bill has strong bipartisan support, Noah reported, scrolling through messages on his phone. They're requesting our presence for the floor vote next month. That's encouraging, I replied, mind already shifting toward implementation considerations. We should prepare expansion scenarios based on different funding allocations. Outside, Washington's spring sunshine illuminated the National Mall stretching before us. Cherry blossoms created delicate pink canopies along pathways filled with tourists and government workers enjoying the seasonal display. Let's walk for a bit, Noah suggested, gesturing toward the reflecting pool. Mia can handle the follow-up coordination. As we strolled among the blossoms, professional conversation gradually yielded to more personal reflection. The significance of the date, 1 year since my family's rejection had set everything in motion, lingered unspoken between us. I've been thinking about that dinner, Noah said finally, giving voice to our shared awareness. When you asked for help with your business, and we all refused. Ancient history, I responded automatically, the deflection habit not fully abandoned, despite our reconciliation. Not that ancient. He stopped walking, turning to face me directly. 1 year ago today, our family made a terrible mistake that hurt you deeply. I don't want to let the anniversary pass without acknowledging that, again. His continued insistence on accountability, even amid the Foundation's success and our improved relationship, reflected perhaps the most significant aspect of his transformation. Unlike temporary remorse that fades once consequences diminish, Noah's recognition of past failure had become integrated into his permanent understanding of our family dynamic. The Foundation might never have existed without that mistake, I acknowledged, resuming our walk. Sometimes I wonder if I should be grateful for the rejection that created everything we've built. That's the complexity of it, Noah agreed. Appreciating the outcome without excusing the action that precipitated it. We found an unoccupied bench facing the Washington Monument and sat in comfortable silence, watching tourists photograph the iconic obelisk against the spring sky. Do you remember what you said when we were developing the app? I asked eventually. About understanding requiring experience, not just acknowledgement? Noah nodded. The testing session when we reconstructed my medical journey. That insight applies beyond our family situation, I continued. It's the universal principle underlying everything the Foundation does, making abstract financial consequences tangible enough for families to experience before making irreversible decisions. The visualization module, Noah realized, showing long-term impact rather than just explaining it. Exactly. Knowledge alone doesn't change behavior. Experience does. This understanding, emerged from our family's painful journey, had become the cornerstone of the Foundation's approach. Each navigation center, every app feature, all educational materials focused on transforming abstract financial implications into concrete experienced reality before families made critical decisions. The legislation incorporates that principle, Noah observed, requiring experiential financial education rather than just information provision. As afternoon shadows lengthened across the mall, our conversation expanded beyond personal and professional considerations to broader philosophical terrain. The universal lesson embedded in our particular experience had implications extending far beyond medical financial navigation. I've been reflecting on why the foundation resonates so powerfully with families, I said, watching a group of schoolchildren follow their teacher toward the Natural History Museum. It's not just the practical guidance, though, that's certainly valuable. What else is it? Noah prompted. Recognition, I replied after careful consideration. Acknowledgement that sacrifice isn't sustainable without reciprocity. That support without boundaries destroys both parties. That systems exploiting generosity ultimately fail everyone involved. Noah nodded slowly. The unspoken truth of caregiving, that unlimited sacrifice, isn't actually virtuous when it creates new casualties. This insight, hard won through my experience supporting Noah and subsequent abandonment when I needed help, had transformed from personal wound to universal principle. The Foundation's work validated caregivers' right to self-protection alongside their commitment to support. Challenging the medical system's implicit exploitation of family resources without corresponding safeguards. The most powerful thing you did, Noah said quietly, wasn't creating financial navigation services, though they're changing countless lives. It was challenging the assumption that limitless sacrifice is the only acceptable response to loved ones in crisis. His observation captured the deeper cultural shift our work promoted, moving beyond individual financial guidance toward fundamental recalibration of how society understood familial obligation during medical crisis. As we prepared to return to our hotel before evening Foundation events, Noah received a message that shifted our reflective mood toward unexpected celebration. "The committee just voted," he announced, showing me his phone. "Unanimous approval to advance the legislation. It's moving to the full Senate with bipartisan endorsement." The news represented extraordinary validation of our approach, political recognition transcending partisan divides, acknowledging universal human vulnerability to medical financial devastation regardless of ideology or circumstance. Later that evening, addressing Foundation supporters at a Washington reception, I found myself reflecting on the extraordinary journey from personal rejection to potential national policy. The room contained hospital administrators, patient advocates, congressional staffers, and financial navigation counselors, a coalition unified by recognition that medical care without financial protection creates casualties beyond patients themselves. 1 year ago today, I began, departing from my prepared remarks. I faced a professional crisis that became personal when my family declined to provide assistance. That painful moment could have remained simply a private wound, a betrayal affecting only those directly involved. The room quieted, attendees recognizing the rare personal disclosure from someone who typically maintained professional focus. Instead, that rejection forced me to recognize how systems of support fail precisely when most needed, how those perceived as strongest often receive least protection, expected to endure without reciprocal assistance. Noah watched from near the podium, his presence embodying both our painful history and transformed present. The Foundation emerged from that recognition, I continued, not merely as personal response to private injury, but as commitment to transforming how all families navigate the intersection of medical necessity and financial sustainability. As I surveyed the room, filled with people dedicated to implementing this transformation across healthcare systems nationwide, the universal lesson of our journey crystallized with newfound clarity. What I've learned through building this foundation is that our most painful experiences often contain our most valuable insights. If we're willing to extract wisdom from wounds, solutions from suffering, connection from abandonment. The reception concluded with announcement of 5 additional hospital systems implementing navigation centers, expanding the Foundation's direct service footprint to 37 facilities across 12 states. Implementation directors shared success metrics from existing centers, demonstrating measurable reduction in medical bankruptcies among participant families. Walking back to our hotel through the illuminated monuments of nighttime Washington, Noah articulated the thought I'd been approaching throughout our day of reflection. The foundation succeeded not despite your abandonment, but because of it, he observed. Had we supported your business as requested, Morgan Patel Consulting might have survived, but thousands of families would still face medical financial devastation without guidance. His insight captured the paradoxical reality we'd both gradually accepted, that profound failure had catalyzed extraordinary creation, that rejection had produced connection, that abandonment had generated protection extending far beyond our family reconciliation. Not all wounds heal into something meaningful, I cautioned, unwilling to romanticize the pain his rejection had caused. Some just remain injuries. True, Noah acknowledged. But yours transformed because you refused to let our failure define the limits of your response. You built beyond resentment toward resolution, not just for yourself, but for everyone facing similar abandonment. The next morning, preparing for additional congressional meetings, I received an unexpected message from Lauren Michaels, the woman I'd met months earlier at Chicago Memorial's Navigation Center. Attached was a photograph of her brother Eli, smiling weakly from a hospital bed following stem cell treatment. Final round of therapy completed yesterday. Prognosis excellent. Parents' retirement intact thanks to your foundation's guidance. Entire family financially and emotionally stable, despite 8 months of intensive treatment. The message continued. Your family's failure created protection for mine. There's profound meaning in that transformation. Hurt converted to healing, abandonment transformed to advocacy, personal pain becoming universal solution. As I shared the message with Noah before entering our first meeting of the day, we both recognized its articulation of the universal lesson embedded in our journey, that sometimes our most significant contributions emerge not from our achievements, but from our disappointments, not from support received, but from support withheld, not from success, but from failure that forces innovation beyond existing systems. Ready? Noah asked as congressional staffers approached to escort us to the committee room. I nodded, tucking away Lauren's message, but carrying its essential truth into the day's work. The foundation created from my family's rejection had evolved. Beyond personal redemption into systemic transformation, our private failure generating public solution, our particular wound producing universal healing. The greatest wisdom often emerges not from our moments of triumph, but from our experiences of abandonment. If we transform those painful inflection points into bridges spanning the gap between personal suffering and collective solution, between individual wounds and universal healing, between what was broken and what might yet be built. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.